Thanks everyone for joining. We are very excited to be spending some time with you all today. Thanks for taking some time out of your afternoons. I am Connor Kitko, and I'm joined today by Senior Product Manager at YCharts, Toby Wren. How are you doing today, Toby?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Connor. Hi, everyone. My name is Toby. And as Connor mentioned, I am a product manager here at YCharts. I chartered our ESG data integration and visualization journey with our engineering team. So we're very excited to share some insights with you today.
Awesome. Yeah, as Toby said, he is the champion of the ESG data here at YCharts, brought all of this great information we're about to discuss to the platform. And we're going to talk about how ESG data can be leveraged in both portfolio management and related workflows, but also those direct conversations with clients. We know that advisors, we've been hearing from advisors we work with, that they're getting a lot of ESG related questions from their clients. And that's exactly why YCharts partnered with MSCI to add all of this great ESG data to the platform, covering stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, and of course, portfolios. Two quick housekeeping items before we jump into the good stuff. First of all, a recording of today's webinar will be emailed to everyone who's here. So if you want that recording, check your inbox or head over to the YCharts YouTube channel. You can like and subscribe that so you never miss this recording or another one. Finally, none of what we discussed today should be considered investment advice, and YCharts is not acting as an advising party regarding client funds in any way. Now that we're done with that, we're good to get into it, and I'm going to pass the mic to Toby to get us started.
Yeah. So in today's webinar, we'll quickly go through the SEC's newly proposed ESG disclosure rules, ESG best practices in YCharts, and how to measure an ESG vehicle's impact on portfolios. So just to quickly go over some of the newly proposed rules by SEC, the new rules will require additional specific disclosure requirements regarding ESG strategies in fund prospectus, annual reports, as well as advisor brochures. So for the brochures, it needs to include progress toward stated impact, key performance indicators, the time horizon the advisor uses, the relationship between ESG impacts and financial returns, and any other material conflicts of interest. The rule also requires fund companies to implement a layered tabular disclosure approach for ESG funds. This way, it will allow investors to compare ESG funds at a glance and across multiple funds. And it generally requires certain environmentally focused funds to disclose their greenhouse gas emissions associated with their portfolio investments. So if you're interested in further information on these newly proposed rules, you can go to SEC's official website to learn more. I'll pass the mic back to Connor.
Thank you, Toby. And yeah, new rules coming, but hopefully this is just going to make analyzing and comparing and selecting ESG investments that much easier, because there's going to be a lot more information to go off of.
Exactly.
Excellent. So talking about what we're going to talk about when we jump into YCharts. So some ESG best practices for comparing, screening, and communicating. We'll first note that ESG scores are sector specific. So Toby's going to go into more detail on that, but it's important to think about what sector industry a security is in when looking at that ESG score. We'll also talk about some of our favorite ESG data to use in the YCharts fund and stock screeners. We've actually got some pre-built templates already using those for everyone to leverage. And then we will walk through a typical ESG data page so that you know where all the metrics are, what all the visuals mean, and how you can use them in those client conversations. After that, we're going to get into the portfolio discussion. We'll talk about ESG scores and metrics at the portfolio level. We'll talk about their relationship or their impact on portfolio performance and risk. And then we'll also just call out this fact that ESG means different things to different people. Some prefer the E or the S or the G element. And so regardless of items 1 and 2 on this list, it might just be the case that an investor wants to limit exposure to tobacco companies or firearm companies or those with human rights violations. And so we'll talk about some of those next level metrics as well. Okay, we're ready to jump into YCharts, and Toby is going to take us through our typical ESG data page.
Yeah, thank you, Connor. So as Connor mentioned, we'll start our discussion around our new ESG pages. So these pages are great. They can be easily accessed on the quote pages of individual securities, companies, ETFs, mutual funds. You can pull them up during a client meeting or a team meeting to dissect or discuss an investment's ESG traits. So for stocks, we'll use Apple's as an example. Here, you can see that the first module is called ESG Overview. First half shows you the ESG rating, and the second half shows you the ESG scoring breakdown. You can see there are different color gradients for the different rating levels to give you a sense on how good or bad a certain rating is. And then we have the two one-liners down there. First one provides you with some context around the company's given rating, and the second one tells you the rating trends. So for Apple, we can see that it had robust data security practices, but controversies are weighing down on their corporate behavior practices. However, it was upgraded from A to BBB, meaning that the overall trend is still upward in the last round of rating evaluation for Apple. And then we also see the 3 pillar scores for a company's ESG score. We display the numerical score, their quartiles within their respective industry peers, first one being the best and fourth being the worst, as well as how much each score weighs in the overall score. We also have a nice pie chart of the weights to give you a visual understanding of the weights, which could vary by industry. On the right-hand side, there's the company's basic info and how its industry peers are doing in regards to their ESG pillar scores. We also have a new ESG news module, which will constantly fetches any ESG tagged news for a certain company or fund, and we'll populate it here. Next, we have a environmental module. Back to the left side, you'll see we display the numerical score and as well as the quartile information. And then when going to the more granular underlying data points of this specific pillar. Carbon emissions scope 1 plus 2 shows you the direct and some indirect carbon emitted by a company, such as fossil fuel combustions or purchased electricities. And carbon emission scope 3 shows you the indirect carbon emitted by a company, such as business travels, leased assets, investments, etc. Then we show you whether a company owns any fossil fuel reserve or not, and what the aggregated warming potential caused by the company's total emission. So the 2 degrees Celsius you see here is a goal set in the Paris Climate Agreement, and we use that as a benchmark here. As you can see, we have tooltips implemented pretty extensively on this page, so feel free to check them out if any of the data points is unclear, and reach out to us if you have any further questions on behind the methodologies. Next up, we have the social module. Again, we display the numerical score and the quartile information here, and then we show you whether a company has any ties to the 3 controversial industries listed here. They're controversial weapons, civilian firearms, and tobacco. We also present how the company is doing in terms of complying the United Nations guiding principles for business and human rights. A company could pass, fail, or on the watch list for the principles. So for Apple, it looks like it's doing quite well on all 4 fronts. Lastly, we have the governance module. We show you what the female director and the independence percentages are for the entire board. We also tell you whether the short-term and long-term compensations of a company's CEO are in line with the company's performance. So that was a quick overview of our stock ESG page. Now we'll look at a fun page.
Yeah, going to get over to a fun page, and one question that came through for Edward. We are getting this data from MSCI. That's our provider for ESG data. Good question.
Great question.
Back to you, Toby.
Yes, thank you, Connor. Now we're looking at the ESG page for DODGX. The first module is called ESG Overview again. Similar to the company page, we show you the ESG ratings, and the second half shows you the ESG scoring breakdown. And again, we show you that weight distribution of a pie chart and give you that visual understanding. On the right-hand side, a little bit different from the companies, there's the fund basic info, the ESG's rating trends of the fund's holdings, whether the holdings rating are moving positively or negatively, the fund's exposure to different ESG rating levels, as well as the peer benchmark. As you can see, we also have a news module here, which will fetch any ESG news of DODGX as they come in. So these news are great, especially when you're in a client meeting and they ask you for some specific context around investments, ESG ratings. You can come to the news and see if there's any stories that you can chat about. And then back to the left-hand side, we have the environmental module again, showing you the fund financed carbon emission, the weighted average carbon intensity, which measures a fund's exposure to carbon intensive company. We also display the fossil fuel reserves percentage bar here, telling you the percentage of a portfolio's market value exposed to companies that own any fossil fuel reserves. Next, we have the social module. Similar to the company one, we show you a fund's holding involvements in 3 industries: controversial weapons, civilian firearms, and tobacco, as well as whether any holdings had violated human rights norms. Then we have the governance module showing you the holdings female and independent board percentages, as well as the holdings CEO pay performance links. And at the bottom of this page, we have a table presenting the weight, ESG rating, and the scoring breakdown of a fund's top 25 holdings, which gives you a quick sense on how we arrived at some of the numbers above and how the top holdings are doing with their ESG evaluations. So those are the quick overview of our ESG visuals for funds and stocks. Now let's try out a feature called Quick Flow, and we have a new Quick Flow called ESG Trades. Imagine you're in a meeting and the client who's interested in ESG threw a few companies at you, and you may want to use this feature to quickly pull some high-level ESG data on the companies. So today we're going to use 4 companies, 2 consumer companies, which are Vista Outdoor, VSTO, Tesla, TSLA, 1 tech company, Apple, AAPL, which we just looked at, and an energy company, Shell, SHEL.
And then just down here, we have this ESG traits comparison.
Exactly.
One click, all the data.
Nice. All right. Now we can see that all these companies have decent ESG ratings. We use companies in different industry here to illustrate the fact that the ratings and scorings are for a fact determined at the industry level. So if you look at Vista Outdoor, even if it has tie in a controversial industry, civilian firearms in this case, its rating isn't particularly bad, meaning that it is still doing a good job navigating ESG risks within its industry. Shell has fossil fuel ties, but its rating is AA, meaning that in the energy industry, Shell is doing a great job planning for its future ESG risks. Apple and Tesla do not have involvement in any of the controversial industries listed here, but their ratings aren't that stellar, meaning that there are other players in the industries doing a way better job than them on some of these fronts. And if you want to dig in a little deeper, you're always welcome to use our metric set. You can see that we have a section dedicated to ESG metrics. Yes, as Connor showed there, you can layer how many ever data points you want, and that'll give you an even more fuller picture on the ESG traits of these companies. So those are the few companies we just looked at. Now let's look at a few ESG funds and go over them. We can, again, use the Quick Flow feature here. So if you're considering a few funds for your clients, you can use this feature to quickly understand their ESG traits and talk about them. So we'll go over SUSA, ESGD, QCLN, and TAN.
Same spot, ESG traits comparison.
Yes, let's launch that. All right. Now it looks like both SUSA and ESGD have great ratings, even if they have slight involvement in the controversial industries, which count towards social scoring. So if you want to dive deeper into why the ratings are this way and why they have some involvement, but they still have a great rating, you can go to our metric list and layer additional ESG metrics here on your table to further your research. For example, we can layer a metric called fund financed carbon emission. It's under environment, I believe. So a little bit up. Yes, correct. Perfect. Now we can see that, oh, SUSA actually has the lowest amount of the carbon emission here. And that probably plays a big part in terms of its stellar rating. All right, so that was a quick overview of our quick flow features, very easy to use, especially when you're on the go. Now let's look at another research capability, our stock screener. So this is a great place to go after your client shared their ESG interests with you or gave you their ESG specifics, and you actually want to perform some screenings for their potential equity investments. So we'll first look at a template called the ESG leaders, the ESG leader companies.
So I'm just opening up our template menu here, and this is where Toby is using this template. Here we go.
All right. Now you can see we have a list of metrics here. Just to quickly go over them, we set the quartile to be less than equal to 2. That meaning we only want the first 2 quartiles of these companies within their industries. And we put some additional filterings around the industry involvement as well as corporate governance. And then you can see we have a list about 900 investments. And now you may wonder, okay, I have this 900 investments, but I still want to further nailing down them. And this is a great opportunity for you to put in some metrics that are interesting to you. So just for demonstration purposes, we added some performance metrics there. We added some return metrics there. We also added some fundamental metrics there. So I wanted the fundamentals to look good. I want the return to also be good, and I don't want it to be too risky. And then you can see our list dwindles to around 14 results. So this gives you a very concrete list of investments to work with and to chat with your clients. Now let's take a look at our fund screener. Let's say that your client's portfolio has mostly fund holdings, and they want to ensure that their holdings are ESG friendly, but still meet their asset allocation goals. This tool can help you with that. So again, we'll pull up a template, which is called Equity ESG Fund Leaders. Again, as Connor's showing, we have an ESG screen. So yes, equity ESG funds. That is the template we'll go through today.
I actually already had it loaded, so didn't need to do that, but
no worries. Yeah, I'll just start going over this while the data is loading. Oh, here we are. So here you can see we're screening on the equity fund universe. So we are telling the tool that we're only interested in equity funds, regardless of other traits. We added 2 housekeeping metrics down there. One is expense ratio and one is years since inception. I want the fund to be at least 1 year old and I don't want it to be too expensive. And then we have a list of ESG related metrics here that are ensuring the funds first have stellar ESG scores. And second, the fund's holdings are ESG leaders. And third, the fund's holdings ESG ratings are trending mostly positive. And then you can see that our list is around 640 funds. And then what Connor is showing here is actually again, similar to what we did to the stock screener, we layered additional performance and risk metrics here to help us really nailing down that list of funds and chat with our clients. As you can see here, we added some 5-year rank around its NAV returns, as well as a monthly standard deviation of a 5-year look back. All right, so those were the quick overviews over the tools. I'm gonna pass the mic back to Connor again.
Yeah, and just I'll call out, we're having some great questions come through. We will get to those. We have some time set aside pretty soon here to answer those questions that you all are sending in. So thank you and appreciate your patience. So Toby showed us the pages for mutual funds. It looks the same for an ETF and also companies when we looked a moment earlier. But now we're going to get into the model portfolios and talk about these metrics at the portfolio level. So I'm going to quickly show you another tab for this portfolio in my YCharts account, which is the holdings tab. And that shows me that I'm using, very popular Vanguard mutual funds here in this portfolio. And then by switching to my ESG tab, I see how those funds in aggregate at my selected weights roll up to these scores. So I see my industry adjusted ESG score at the portfolio level and how that score breaks down across the environmental, social, and governance pillars. On the environmental front, we also see the percentage of my portfolio's value exposed to fossil fuel reserves and that numerical environmental score. On the social side, this is a good to call out that these pass-fail scores are based on any exposure to some of these different controversial industries. So weapons involvement, civilian firearms, human rights norms, and tobacco involvement. None of these are actually passing for my portfolio, probably because I'm using these very large Vanguard index mutual funds. And then on the governance side, percentage of companies with female board representation, with greater than 30% female board representation. We don't want a pay performance link, and then that independent board majority metric as well. And here we have, for all of my holdings, those Vanguard mutual funds, what is their weight within my portfolio, target weight and current weight. I have this set to rebalance quarterly. And then I can also see the ESG ratings and scores, plus the environmental score, social score, and governance score for all of my portfolio's holdings. So I can really quickly spot which ones are adding or taking away from that top level ESG score. So I want to show just one quick way to make some comparisons if you're discussing two portfolios with an investor, or maybe you're testing out some hypothetical changes. So just tabbing over to this separate portfolio in my account, which is all holdings in the same fund categories as before, but we looked for ESG specific funds. And so on my holdings tab, you can see I have some iShares ESG for US stocks, international stocks, fixed income, emerging markets, and bonds here. Back to the ESG tab. I'm just going to tab between the two, and you'll see that my original portfolio scoring a 7.77, and my new portfolio with all those changes made is a 9.37. And I can hopefully scroll down and see those changes elsewhere as well. Now, we've talked a little bit about that holdings comparison when you can dig into that next level and see, where am I really getting ESG value within my portfolio? What might need to be swapped out for something that's a little more ESG friendly? And we'll go back to our quick flows menu to show you another cool automated pre-built workflow here. So we were on the comparison tab for stocks and mutual funds. We're going to go over to the single tab, and I'm just going to add in my 80-20 portfolio. It's showing me all of the data in my YCharts account that matches my search. But once I've pulled in, I see that's my 80-20. Then I can go to this ESG traits holding analysis. And if I had plugged in, any portfolio, I would have had that quick flow available to me as well. And now I'm getting all of this data, the MSCI ratings and scores, fossil fuel reserves, tobacco, firearms, at that portfolio level. And it's showing me all that data for each of my holdings in this portfolio. So again, I can, as Toby called out, continue to use the full list of ESG metrics at my disposal to see what's really going on inside my portfolio. And if I know that this client in particular has a focus on ties to tobacco, or avoiding those ties to tobacco or civilian firearms, then here's where I can add that advanced data and answer those questions. So that was, one visual way is using these quote tabs to compare portfolios. But we want to take advantage of another really awesome tool on YCharts, which is our scatter plots, to show you how these different portfolios might be compared in a much more visual manner. So I've opened up our scatter plot here, and I've added to it that original 80/20 model portfolio. The other portfolio we looked at with the all holdings ESG is down here as well, and that's going to be our green dot on my scatter plot. And then all of these portfolios in between, I basically just swapped out one fund at a time. So I said, give me an ESG short-term bond fund, an ESG total market bond fund, and so on down the list. So now we're visualizing what marginal ESG or performance benefit am I getting from each of these funds being swapped out one at a time. And what it shows me is pretty interesting. Starting from my portfolio right here, which is the purple cross, you see that if and I'll quickly just add more context, MSCI ESG score is on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, 5-year total returns annualized. And actually those aren't annualized, but I can change it to it. Very easy. The text field recognizes some of these shorthands, which is great. And once I've done that, I see my portfolio and I see that any of these fund replacements is going to improve my ESG score, moving it to the right on this x-axis. However, not every replacement would improve my tax adjusted returns. So only when I made that replacement for US stocks, and then for, well, actually, if I also did it for the total bond category, I'm also getting some performance benefit. However, we can also see that an emerging markets ESG fund, it actually hurt my performance while it did improve the ESG score of the portfolio. And you saw how I just swapped out these metrics pretty easily. And so let's talk about risk here now. And let's just look at annualized standard deviation. And I'll do that on a 5-year look back as well. And so now you can see a similar but different comparison where I'm saying, okay, as I replace these, I do want my legend back actually. As we're making these fund replacements, now we have standard deviation on the y-axis. So for that extra ESG score, am I adding more risk or taking some risk off the table? And it appears that swapping in that US stock ESG fund is going to actually help me on the standard deviation front. Some of the others, though, will increase my standard deviation, although only marginally. These visuals I do want to note are also, if I switch to presentation view, this is great to add to something like a newsletter or an email to a client or a blog post, social media, if that's your thing. And I can easily export this as a PNG. I can print it out. Or if I just want the data, because I'm going to use that elsewhere, you can do that too. And while we're up here, let's call out sharing too. If you and your colleagues are on a shared YCharts account, then you can easily send a visual that you create or a portfolio or anything else to those colleagues with linked accounts. Okay, I do see a question. Can you point out where the scatter plot is again? Absolutely. So under our tools menu here in the black navigation bar at the top, scatter plot is right here, smack dab between the two charts. So all of our visual creation tools are grouped together here. And then just for completeness sake, when we were looking at those quote pages, it's as simple as clicking into the search bar. And then if you know the ticker, you can type that in. If you just know the name, you can do that. Or if you're just saying, show me a couple ESG funds, then you can see we have some equities, some mutual funds with those with ESG in their names. And as I click into my results, super easy once I get here to jump into that ESG tab, which is located in this gray bar here. Okay, that is everything that we had prepared to show you all, but we do have a number of questions here to get through and some really good ones at that. So I'm going to get back to our slide deck, leave this up here to help crystallize in everyone's brains, what some of the best use cases for ESG data are. Toby, if you don't mind me sending the first question to you, we had someone ask about the scale of these scores, you know, AA, AAA,
Yeah.
is it out of 10? Can you just give a little bit of insight into the rating scales here?
Yeah, great question. So for the ratings, scale is CCC to AAA. And as I earlier mentioned, you can see we have different color gradients there. So from green to red, that way we can kind of indicate whether a certain rating is good or bad. So AAA is the best and CCC is the worst. In terms of scoring, it's 1 through 10. As you can see for Apple here, we have 6.1 out of 10. And again, sometimes you'll notice that some firms have a relatively low score. Again, let's keep that in mind. This is industry-based rather than entire equity universe-based.
Great. I think I also saw, you know, Toby, I think this is the same concept, but someone mentioned, you know, Apple being in the fourth quartile. You know,
yeah.
Explain that quartile ranking a little bit.
Yeah, great question. I did answer that offline, but I'll mention that again here. So when MSCI research team evaluates a firm and coming up with that final score, they look at, you know, potentially up to hundreds of data points when they're evaluating a certain pillar of a company. So the 4 granular data points we chose here aren't necessarily completely representative of their entire research process. So just doing fine on these 4 fronts doesn't necessarily mean they're doing on all other governance fronts. So it is possible that MSCI research team are looking at some other metrics. So this kind of leads us to, you know, the next steps of this project. We do intend to continue importing new ESG data points from MSCI, and I saw someone already shared a list of data points that they're interested in. So we definitely welcome feedback. And if you have any data points that you're interested to see, feel free to chat with our support team or your customer success managers. Yes, as Connor showed there, and you know those feedback always get to surface to our product team. So keep the feedback coming and we welcome them 100%.
Great. Yeah, please, we love hearing the feedback. We love hearing any new ideas, and the chat, not only just for support, we have those live humans here in the US ready to take those questions and feedback on the product. An interesting question on this same thread, Toby, from Brad. He's wondering if there's an even split by ESG rating across each sector, or could one sector, let's just stick with consumer electronics as an industry, have significantly more A, AA, or AAA versus low scores on that spectrum?
Yeah, that's a great question. To answer this question shortly, I'm not 100% sure in terms of their rating and scoring distributions. However, I would assume the distributions should be somewhat even rather than skewed, just because they do have that quartile information, you know, first through fourth. And I believe in order to come up with that quartile ranking, you will need, you know, good scores with bad scores. So you know, Brad, I don't want to, you know, give you firm words on this, but I would assume that the scoring distribution should be somewhat even, just based on, you know, the sort of the second layer of data points that we see in terms of like the quartile there.
Yeah, I think the quartile is a great clue there to kind of see, you know, how things are stacking up in that industry.
Exactly. Yeah, and also just to mention, the scoring to rating mapping is actually completely the same across industries. I don't have the numbers specific in front of me, but it's basically like 7 to 10 or 7 to 8 something is like considered as AA, and then plus that it will be AAA. So they do have a list of scoring to rating mapping scheme. And if you're interested in that, feel free to chat our support team again. We do have that methodology paper readily available, and we can share the detailed methodology information with you.
Awesome. Toby, to put you on the spot about some more future planned features around ESG, Michelle is asking about reports, and particularly a dedicated report, just ESG data.
Yeah, Michelle, that's a great question. That is absolutely on our roadmap. Sort of that, before we add new data, that's kind of our last step of this entire ESG project. So we do anticipate to build an ESG tear sheets for all investments. Security types that already have ESG data. So those are stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, and model portfolios. So yeah, keep an eye out. We are kicking off design relatively soon. One little sneak peek, I think it will look somewhat similar to what you see here on the ESG tab, but we'll package that into a one pager that's nicely looking and client friendly as well. So they are coming. Thank you for the question, Michelle.
Yeah. And Toby, I believe you can also, we have this reports menu here and folks can, well, now I'm looking at a stock, but I guess I should be talking about a portfolio.
Yeah, a portfolio or a fund. Yeah, Connor, you're absolutely correct. So even though right now we don't have specific modules that are targeting at ESG metrics, we do have certain modules such as an all holding modules that show you the metrics breakdown of a fund's holdings, and you can add ESG metrics there. And we also have a key stats module that you can add ESG metrics in there as well. So even though currently we don't have ESG module per se, you are able to add ESG related data into your reports currently.
Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, I'm not sure if anyone saw the picture just fall off the wall behind me, but
yeah, they're so excited about the ESG data.
Yeah, bringing down the house, quite literally. There's another, let's talk about this topic, Toby. Just Steve asked about, divergence of some of the scores from MSCI versus any other provider. He mentioned Sustainalytics, but I think it is important to mention that there is some variance across the different ESG rating providers. Same way that you might see some variance between Fitch and Moody's and S&P for a bond credit rating. Same concept. Toby knows more about this than I do, but each of these firms has armies of ESG analysts evaluating companies. And so they might, in certain cases, arrive at slightly different results. Yeah. However, there's some reasoning for our partnership with MSCI, definitely.
Yeah, Steve, I think that's a great point. That is definitely one caveat I would say currently just within the ESG data provider landscape, just the fact that ESG rating methodologies could vary drastically across data providers. However, we do believe in MSCI's expertise. It is actually one of the biggest ESG data providers in the financial industry now, other than Sustainalytics. So we are quite confident in their research and their insights. I did want to mention that I believe for MSCI's fund ESG scoring or ratings, they are just looking at the underlying holdings. So it's kind of like an aggregated level of data at the fund level, similar to what we did for model portfolios. And they do have a 65% data coverage threshold for the underlying holdings, which is the same rule that we apply to our model portfolio calculation as well. With that being said, I'm not 100% sure on how Sustainalytics work in terms of their fund scorings. I think they might surface that data to Morningstar, and then Morningstar will come up with their global ESG ratings. And with that being said, I think Morningstar also has some fund research expertise. So it is possible that they might not solely looking at just the underlying ESG data. They might consider some extra layers when they're coming up with the fund's ESG final evaluation. But great question. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, Toby. That's really helpful and very important to note as well. I think this will be our last question of the session, but Jillian, talking about looking for ways to improve that score. Toby, I'm looking at the all holdings module here, and that's kind of if you just look for that worst score, that's a great lead on where a replacement might be made. But anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think you touched it 100%. Our model portfolio level ESG data is a weighted average aggregation of the underlying holdings. And as I mentioned, we do have that 65% data coverage threshold. So One, you can come to an ESG page, check out its all holdings module and see which holding has a relatively bad scoring or ratings, or again, you can use our quick flows, the ESG trades for the underlying holdings of a model portfolio, and that give you a fuller picture of what's going on. And you can sort of go from there and see that if any holdings are looking not as stellar, you can change that.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned, it's really helpful that we put the current weight right next to the score and the rating here, because you might say, well, this triple B is the worst, but it's actually only about 6% of my portfolio.
Exactly.
So by elevating, one of these A's or double A's to a triple A, you might actually have a more meaningful impact on the portfolio.
Absolutely.
Okay. Everyone, thank you so much for your time. Of course, if you want to learn more about YCharts, head to YCharts.com, start a free trial for 7 days. Anyone can do that with just their email. And then also you can reach out to sales@YCharts.com via email for any questions. We would be more than happy to set you up with a one-on-one personalized demonstration talking about ESG and portfolios or anything else in the YCharts universe. And then if you are a user and you want some help understanding, communicating, or visualizing this data, email us at support@YCharts.com, or as we mentioned, use that handy chat function online during all business hours, and then we log them and reply the morning after if you contact us outside of business hours. Thank you everyone for joining. Toby, thank you so much for sharing all of this knowledge with us. We hope that you all enjoy the ESG journey along with YCharts.
Yes, thank you, Connor, and thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you soon.